I'm so happy you're here today for another deep dive into the teachings of A Course in Miracles. Today we're exploring Chapter 16, and specifically its first section called True Empathy. Now I know what you might be thinking. Empathy? That's something we already understand, right? We've all heard about empathy. We've been told to practice it, to feel what others feel, to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. But here's the thing. The Course is about to challenge everything we think we know about empathy. And trust me, this is one of those moments where ACIM takes a concept we're familiar with and completely turns it upside down. Chapter 16 is titled The Forgiveness of Illusions, and that's no accident. Everything in this chapter is about learning to see past what isn't real, learning to look beyond the stories we tell ourselves, the identities we've constructed, the pain we think defines us. And empathy, as the Course teaches it, becomes a powerful tool in this process. But not the kind of empathy the world teaches. Not the empathy that says, I feel your pain, I understand your suffering, let me join you in it. That's not what true empathy is about at all. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you tried to help someone by diving into their problem with them? How many times have you listened to a friend's struggle and felt yourself getting pulled into their anxiety, their fear, their sense of hopelessness? It feels like connection, doesn't it? It feels like compassion. But the Course is going to show us something different. It's going to show us that what we call empathy is often just another form of agreement with illusion. It's another way of saying, yes, this nightmare is real. Yes, you should be afraid. Yes, we're all separate, all vulnerable, all at the mercy of a world that can hurt us. True empathy, as the Holy Spirit teaches it, is something entirely different. It's a recognition. It's a way of seeing that looks past the surface story, past the drama, past the pain, and recognizes something unchangeable underneath. It's a way of being with someone that doesn't validate their illusions, but doesn't judge them either. It's a presence that says, without words, I see what you think is happening, but I also see what's really true about you, and what's really true can never be touched by any of this. This is radical. This challenges everything we've been taught about being a good person, about being compassionate, about being there for others. And yet, as we go deeper into this section, you'll see that this is actually the only way to truly help anyone. Because when we join someone in their illusion of separation, we're not helping them wake up from it. We're just agreeing to dream together. So in this video, we're going to look closely at what true empathy actually is. We're going to explore the difference between the ego's version of empathy and the Holy Spirit's version. We're going to see how projection works, how what we see in others is always a reflection of what we believe about ourselves, and we're going to discover how true empathy becomes a bridge, not to another person's pain, but to the truth that sets everyone free. This is Chapter 16, Section 1. This is true empathy. Let's explore this together. Let's start with something we all do, probably every single day. Someone comes to us with a problem. Maybe it's a friend who's anxious about work, a family member going through a breakup, or even a stranger sharing their frustration online. And what do? We listen. We nod. We say, I know exactly how you feel. We might even share a similar story from our own life. We think we're being empathetic. We think we're being compassionate. But here's what the Course wants us to understand. There are two completely different types of empathy, and only one of them actually helps. The first type is what we might call the ego's empathy. This is the empathy we're most familiar with. It's when we look at someone's situation and we feel what they're feeling. We see their pain and we feel pain. We see their fear and we feel fear. We see their sense of being attacked or abandoned or misunderstood, and something in us resonates with that. We think this is connection. We think this is love. But what's really happening? We're agreeing with their interpretation of reality. We're saying, yes, you're right to feel this way. Yes, the world is threatening. Yes, you are a victim of circumstances beyond your control. The ego's empathy always reinforces separation. It says, you and I are both separate individuals, both vulnerable to a world that can hurt us, both at the mercy of forces we can't control. It feels intimate, doesn't it? It feels like bonding, but it's actually a shared agreement to stay asleep. It's two people validating each other's nightmares. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Course introduces us to a completely different kind of empathy. True empathy. The empathy of the Holy Spirit. And this empathy doesn't work the way we expect. True empathy doesn't look at someone's pain and say, I feel what you're feeling. Instead, it looks past the pain to what's actually true. It recognizes that what we're seeing in someone else, what we're reacting to, is always a projection of something within ourselves. This is huge. True empathy understands that when we see suffering in another person, we're actually seeing our own belief in suffering. When we see fear in someone else, we're seeing our own fear projected outward. The Holy Spirit's empathy doesn't join in the illusion. It recognizes the illusion for what it is. And in that recognition, there's a kind of freedom that the ego's empathy can never offer. Think about the difference. The ego's empathy says, I feel your pain. The Holy Spirit's empathy says, I see past the pain to what's eternally true about you. The ego's empathy says, let me carry this burden with you. The Holy Spirit's empathy says, this burden was never real to begin with. The ego's empathy binds us together in shared suffering. True empathy offers a way out. This isn't cold. This isn't uncaring. Actually, it's the deepest form of care imaginable, because true empathy refuses to validate the lies we tell ourselves. It refuses to agree that we're small, limited, vulnerable beings at the mercy of a cruel world. Instead, it holds space for the truth. And that truth is what heals. So now we need to talk about projection, because this is where true empathy really starts to make sense. And I'm going to be honest with you. This concept can feel uncomfortable at first. It challenges us. It asks us to look at something we'd rather not look at. But stay with me, because this is where real transformation happens. Here's what the Course teaches. Everything we see outside of ourselves is a projection of what we believe inside. Everything. That person who irritates you, that's showing you something about yourself. That situation that triggers anxiety, that's revealing a belief you're holding. When we see weakness in someone else, we're projecting our own fear of being weak. When we see attack, we're projecting our own guilt. The world we see is literally a mirror, reflecting back to us the contents of our own mind. Now, this is where true empathy becomes powerful, because when we understand projection, empathy transforms from feeling what others feel into something much deeper. It becomes a recognition. It becomes a moment of awakening. When someone comes to us with their pain, their fear, their anger, true empathy doesn't just react to what they're showing us. It recognizes that what they're showing us is the same illusion we've been believing ourselves. It's the same separation, the same guilt, the same fear, just wearing a different costume. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone tells you they feel abandoned, unloved, forgotten by the people who matter most to them. The ego's empathy says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be terrible. People can be so cruel." It validates the story. It agrees that abandonment is real, that love can be taken away, that we're all vulnerable to being left alone. But true empathy? It recognizes something different. It sees that this person is projecting outward a belief they hold about themselves. They believe they're unworthy of love. They believe they're separate from the source of all love. And they're seeing that belief reflected in their relationships. True empathy doesn't judge this. It doesn't say, "You're wrong to feel this way." But it also doesn't agree with the illusion. Instead, it holds a different vision. It sees past the story of abandonment to the truth. This person has never been separate from love, not for a single instant. They can't be abandoned because they're part of something that can never be broken. The feeling of abandonment is real to them, yes. But what caused the feeling? Not the actions of others. The belief in separation, the projection of their own sense of unworthiness. This is what makes true empathy such a powerful tool for undoing the belief in separation. Because every time we practice it, we're choosing not to validate the illusion. We're choosing not to agree that we're all separate beings who can hurt each other, abandon each other, fail each other. We're choosing to see something else, something true. And here's the beautiful part. When we see past someone else's projection, we're also seeing past our own. When we refuse to believe in their separation, we're refusing to believe in ours. When we recognize that what they're showing us is just a reflection of the same ego belief system we all share, we're loosening its grip on our own mind. True empathy heals both the one who offers it and the one who receives it. Not because it makes the pain go away instantly, but because it refuses to make the pain real. This is how projection becomes a teaching tool instead of a prison. This is how empathy becomes a path to freedom. So we've seen the two types of empathy, and we've understood how projection works. Now let's talk about what happens when we actually choose true empathy in our relationships. Because this is where theory becomes practice. This is where everything shifts. The ego's version of empathy creates what the Course calls special relationships. And special relationships are based on a very specific dynamic. I see you as separate from me, you see me as separate from you. And we come together to try to fill the gaps, to ease the loneliness, to make the separation more bearable. We bond over shared pain. We connect through mutual suffering. We validate each other's fears and limitations. And we call this love. We call this friendship. We call this being there for each other. But here's what's really happening. Special relationships, even when they feel warm and caring, are actually keeping us trapped in the illusion of separation. Because they're based on the premise that we're incomplete, that we need something from each other, that we're vulnerable and small and in need of protection from a dangerous world. The ego's empathy reinforces this. Every time we agree with someone's pain, every time we validate their perception of attack, every time we say, "Yes, you're right to feel this way," we're making separation more real for both of us. True empathy offers something completely different. It offers what the Course calls a holy relationship. And a holy relationship isn't holy because it's perfect or because there's no conflict. It's holy because it has a different purpose. Instead of using the relationship to reinforce separation, we use it to remember union. Instead of bonding over shared illusions, We support each other in waking up from them. When we practice true empathy, we're no longer trying to fix someone's pain or make it go away. We're not joining them in their nightmare, but we're also not dismissing their experience or telling them their feelings don't matter. We're doing something much more subtle and much more powerful. We're holding a different vision. We're seeing them as whole, even when they can't see it themselves. We're refusing to believe in their separation from God, even when they believe it completely. This is what liberates, not our sympathy, not our agreement with their suffering, but our quiet, steady refusal to see them as anything less than what they truly are. This is the gift of true empathy. It doesn't imprison us in shared pain. It offers a way out. Now, let's be practical. How do we actually do this? How do we choose the Holy Spirit's interpretation instead of the ego's? It starts with a simple recognition. When someone comes to us with their pain, we have a choice. We can interpret what they're showing us through the ego's lens, which says, "This pain is real. This attack happened. This person is a victim, and I should feel what they're feeling." Or we can ask the Holy Spirit for a different interpretation. We can pause and think, what would it mean to see this differently? What would it mean to see past the form of this suffering to the content underneath? The Holy Spirit's interpretation always points to the same truth. This person is not what they think they are. They're not limited, not vulnerable, not separate from love. What they're experiencing is the result of believing in separation, and that belief can be undone. True empathy sees this, and in seeing it, it becomes a bridge to healing. This is the transition from special to holy. This is how empathy becomes a tool for awakening instead of a chain that binds us to illusion. So here we are, at the end of our exploration of true empathy, and I hope something has shifted for you. I hope you're seeing empathy in a completely different light now. Because what we've discovered today is that the empathy we've been taught, the empathy the world celebrates, is actually keeping us trapped. It's keeping us locked in a shared dream of separation, pain, and vulnerability. And true empathy, the empathy the Holy Spirit teaches, offers us a way out. Let's remember what we've covered. We started by recognizing that there are two types of empathy. The ego's empathy, which joins in suffering and validates illusion, and the Holy Spirit's empathy, which sees past the pain to what's eternally true. We explored how projection works, how everything we see outside, ourselves, is a reflection of what we believe inside, and how true empathy recognizes this and refuses to make the projection real. And finally, we looked at how choosing true empathy transforms our relationships from special to holy, from bonds of shared suffering to bridges toward awakening. This isn't easy. I'm not going to pretend it is. Everything in our culture tells us that good people feel what others feel, that compassion means joining in someone's pain, that empathy requires us to validate whatever story someone is telling. And the Course is asking us to do something radically different. It's asking us to love people enough to not agree with their nightmares. It's asking us to care so deeply that we refuse to see them as small, limited, vulnerable beings. It's asking us to hold a vision of wholeness even when everything in the situation seems to be screaming separation. But this is the practice. This is how we forgive illusions. Not by pretending they don't hurt, not by bypassing genuine feelings, but by choosing to see past the form to the content. By recognizing that what looks like pain is always the result of believing in separation, and that belief can be undone. So I invite you to practice this. The next time someone comes to you with their struggle, their fear, their sense of being attacked or abandoned or misunderstood, pause, just for a moment, and ask yourself, what would true empathy see here? What would it mean to see this person as whole, as loved, as eternally connected to Source, even while they're experiencing what they're experiencing? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to say the perfect thing. Just hold that vision. Just refuse, quietly, gently, to make their separation real. This is how we heal. This is how we wake up. Together. Thank you so much for being here today, for taking this journey with me through Chapter 16, Section 1 of A Course in Miracles. If this video resonated with you, if something shifted, if you're seeing empathy differently now, please let me know by hitting that like button. It really helps this content reach more people who are ready for these teachings. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our deep dives into ACIM. We're going through this course together, section by section, uncovering the radical teachings that have the power to transform everything. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Share it with someone who's struggling, someone who's searching, someone who's ready to see the world differently. These teachings are meant to be shared. Drop a comment below and tell me, how do you practice true empathy in your life? What challenges come up for you? Let's continue this conversation together. Until next time, remember, you are not what you think you are. You are so much more. And true empathy is how we remember that, for ourselves and for everyone.